As Douglas College staff, we wish to begin by acknowledging the Coquitlam and Pequot First Nations, as well as all Coast Salish peoples on whose traditional and unceded territory we live, learn, play, and work. And we just wanted to take a moment to recognize and honor what's happened of late. And so I believe our whole country learned yesterday about the Kawas First Nation as they announced their preliminary discovery of 751 unmarked graves. And I guess this comes in the light of multiple other similar occasions, sadly, including that of Kamloops in the Indian Residential School, where 215 children were also discovered as well. So we really reach out to people who are touched by that directly and indirectly. And as Canadians, I guess this is it's a very sad time for us, and a time that propels us to consider how we can contribute positively to our health and well-being systems. And in the light of that, Dawn Thomas, executive lead of Indigenous Health British Columbia, has agreed to return to do a workshop with us in the fall. And I guess our purpose for that is to really consider personal actions and organizational actions that we can engage with to bring, not only to bring these issues forward, but also to make our places more aware and our people more aware with education and actions to contribute positively to these sad things. And as well, we wanted to recognize in recent years, hate motivated crimes that have begun recently in London, Ontario, and across the country have increased. We acknowledge this fact brings a sense of perhaps sadness to us, perhaps anger, and the need to make positive change within our communities of practice. And to that end, we plan to offer a webinar to consider PSR competencies related to these issues. We'd very much appreciate hearing from you regarding any resources or perhaps expertise you might have to contribute to our learning in this area. So we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have particular resources or people you might wish to recommend that we can learn with and from. So thank you for that. So you've seen this slide many times before if you've been with us, so you know that our role really as advanced practice is to provide leadership, education and guidance to mental health field to develop and put effective evidence-based psychosocial rehabilitation practices into place. We've much gratitude to offer to many people, to the Ministry of Health who got us started on our way. More recently to Fraser Health Authority, who've provided some funding in particular for a project around supported employment and education. So stay tuned, you'll be hearing a lot more about that. And hopefully you've seen a education needs assessment that's out there, and hopefully you've had a moment to give us some feedback about that. We also really thank our presenters. So today you'll see we have two wonderful people with us. And we'll do a formal introduction in a wee moment, but we're very grateful to people because we would not have this learning without their expertise. So a big thank you to those good people for helping us along the way. They do this for free and we are very, very, very grateful. So Manny will pop in the chat box, just the evaluation for today. I do want to just spend a little minute just saying thank you for people who gave us some feedback on the last presentation. So you'll remember that Jen did speak about, she spoke about the new peer support guidelines that was supported by the Ministry of Health. So she did speak to us about that. And you gave us some very fine feedback in terms of your excitement and looking forward to getting your mitts on the information. You also gave us good feedback about something we can really do something about today, about please give us instructions of when to use the chat box and the question and answer box. So for today, please let's put your questions, your comments, everything in the chat box, and that way we'll be able to monitor it. So really, we do appreciate and we do read that feedback. So thank you very much. Yeah. I want to give you a little bit of a heads up about upcoming webinars. Sorry, I should have put that on full screen. I apologize. Upcoming webinar presentation. So we look forward to Lana Collis, who will speak to us about working with people in supported employment in particular with justice system issue involvement. We talked about the evaluation, we talked about the first upcoming webinar with Lana, and the second upcoming webinar is to invite you to a fireside chat. And we have 3 particular questions. Please have a look at the psyrehab.ca website and an opportunity to really think about how we can support each other, what strategies we might put in place as we consider returning to more face-to-face kind of service delivery. And so now it is my great pleasure to introduce our speakers today. So the first person I know is probably familiar to many of you. So dear Hazel is a community leader in mental health. Hazel has a wee wave there. BA, MBA believes in an inclusive, supportive community for everyone, including those who have schizophrenia, bipolar, and psychosis, with or without substance use. Her background in clinical and administrative work also includes being a big proponent for peer support and recovery-oriented approach. She lives in beautiful Victoria, BC, and is the CEO of Mental Health Recovery Partners, South Island, and board president of the Schizophrenia Society of Canada. This woman has no free time, methinks. She will speak a little bit more about her work with the Schizophrenia Society, so we'll hear a little bit more just as she introduces her presentation. She also enjoys working with an inclusive team and systems to bring hope and support to people experiencing mental health challenges with or without substance use and their families. So that's dear Hazel. And then our other presenter today is, there we go, is dear Natalie. And Natalie, it seems, has just a wonderful accent as well. She's a Scottish immigrant to Canada, motivated by her recovery journey with bipolar disorder and PTSD. She works as a peer supporter at Mental Health Recovery Partners South Island in the Transitional Discharge Model program, as well as blogging about her lived experience. Natalie is committed to empowering and inspiring others to take control of the narrative when living with mental illness. And so I so much look forward to that presentation. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn off my camera and I'm going to pass it over to Hazel. Thank you, Hazel.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to pull up my slides, or our slides. There we go. Just first would like to recognize that a settler on the unceded grounds of the Lekwungen speaking people, including the Esquimalt and the Songhees. And this is in an area of British Columbia known as, and Victoria is our base. So yeah, we're really pleased to be here and sharing our presentation with you. Just gonna move my screen up here. There we go. So I think people can see the full screen. We've had a brief introduction of ourselves to let you know that there's been 3 of us really steadily working on this project since about September time, when we received the contract to work with Island Health. And so we're with Mental Health Recovery Partners, formerly known as BCSS Victoria. We've changed our brand and we've widened our pool to work specifically from a recovery-oriented approach for families and for people with lived experience. Introducing the people on our screen, of course, is myself and the lovely Natalie. And off to the right is Don Palmer, who was our peer program coordinator for many, many years, about 15 years. And he couldn't be with us this morning, but he has certainly been an instrumental part of getting the project going and moving forward. So just want to recognize his hard work and leadership on the project. In terms of Island Health, who we've been working on this exciting project about, has been Janine Gowans. There's been a couple of different managers that were involved prior to their retirement, Susan Rich, and right now we're quite involved with Kristen Duncan, and people are really quite excited to see not only how the TDM project is going, or the Transitional Discharge Model, but also how mental health peer support is being integrated in some of the services at our local hospital and beyond. So we'll go through our presentation. We'll have time for some questions. It is in the early phases of this project in some ways. So we'll take you through that as we go through the presentation. So our learning objectives is, what is the transitional discharge model? Defining the role of peer support in the transitional discharge model, affectionately known as TDM. How does this model promote recovery in a person-centered approach? One of our most amazing and favorite topics with the leadership of the BC Advanced Practice, of course, and throughout our nation. And examples of new connections and lessons learned to help promote recovery using this approach. So what is the transitional discharge model? It's described as an intervention that incorporates both continued support from hospital staff after discharge and peer support to facilitate a smooth transition. As we, it was created by a team of researchers led by Dr. Cheryl Forchuk, and for those in the PSR industry know that we've appreciated the decades of her hard work and inclusive teams for research to bring forward such innovative and helpful recovery-oriented practices, and even specifically in this model, to explore implementation and measurement. So in terms of, I learned about the transitional discharge model actually from a friend of mine, and she believed that her daughter would have benefited from this model. And her daughter is no longer with us, and it's become a real inspiration to know that the part of the legacy is to move forward in a model that could be touching the lives and helping people instrumentally and practically at such a challenging time and vulnerable time. People are in crisis, of course. They have gone into the acute setting and then needing to find ways to help themselves post-discharge. And so this, I've been really pleased and honored to work with a team of very professional peer specialists to help us connect with folks who may or may not connect well with the clinical team. It provides another way of connecting with the heart and spirit with folks, and really help share resources, inspiration, hope, and a way that people can connect after being discharged. So we talk about recovery-oriented practice, and of course we're using the recovery-oriented practice guidelines as noted by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. We also use the work of the Mental Health Commission to guide our practices about development of peer support, and knowing what that is from the vast amount of work that's happened there, and also the leading edge work that was presented at the last BC Advanced Practice seminar, led by Jen Cusick and Jonathan, to present the BC curriculum. So we're really thrilled that we're on the cutting edge of providing that. Where does the TDM come from? Actually, it's at 9 hospitals in Ontario, and they've connected with peer serving organizations in the communities to actually have cross-spectrum ways of supporting folks. So it's been interesting. Each hospital has it implemented just a little bit different in terms of our research about how they connect in with their peers. But basically the peers are in the hospital to be able to connect with people who have indicated a want or a need to connect with someone with lived experience, and provide a chance to connect through the discharge process and after discharge. So the research of this model, there are three excellent papers from Dr. Cheryl Forchuk and her team. And we've also, and that includes an implementation model. She's also recently just come out with a book, which is also referenced. So I think we're well on the way to providing some great information around that. I would like to let you know as well that in London, Ontario, one of the hospitals has just been recognized by the World Health Organization for their good work on the TDM, and that just came out on the 23rd. So we're really in good company with this model to help advance that, to help people who are struggling and wanting to explore recovery. So one of the areas that we referenced in our work was the looking at what kinds of facilitators and enablers would be in the hospital, because it can be a challenge to see how peer support can be integrated successfully there. And I was really pleased to have attended one of the peer support Canada conferences a number of years ago, and Dr. Balderson had presented with a team to bring forward certain facilitators of service delivery and barriers to service delivery as part of their literature review. So that's in my reference section. But just to note that facilitators of service delivery included perceived value of lived experience, the peer supporters' interpersonal communication skills, formal group facilitation was important, and regular clinical supervision. And certain barriers were absence of role clarity, which is really big in wherever peer services is introduced, proportion of time to clients, unclear process for disclosure of lived experience, and tensions between recovery-oriented and clinical language. So as we're making that shift from the traditional medical model, Western-based service milieu to the recovery-oriented system, we're in that transition where we can learn a lot from each other to really embrace the recovery-oriented approaches as outlined with the Mental Health Commission of Canada work. So really pleased to share about the transitional discharge model. One of the quotes that came from the news 2 days ago from the London example that I just mentioned is that the immediate period after discharge from hospital, usually in the first month, can be the most vulnerable times in the life of someone experiencing mental illness. It can be when they are most at risk of committing suicide, explains Dr. Cheryl Forchuk, Assistant Scientific Director at Lawson Health Institute Research. And just to let you know, again, her book was just released, is From Therapeutic Relationships to Transitional Care, a theoretical and practical roadmap. So we're really cutting edge in this. And as such, I want to let you know that although we've implemented the project from September time, it's taken work to have us bring together the clinical work as well as the peer support work and identify and build our own program map along the way with exploring policies and procedures that help best in a person-centered type approach, which is the new recovery-oriented perspective that we can fortify with a project such as this. So Natalie, would you like to define the role of what is peer support in TDM?
Certainly. And so peer support is a confidential one-on-one emotional and practical support, and that is done through the shared experience of mental illness and recovery, with weekly meetings in the community for approximately 3 months, 12 weeks post-discharge. We build a mutual relationship in which we work together to discover better ways to manage, engage in our interests and hobbies, and work towards our future goals. For me, the best part about recovery is that you don't have to do it alone. Yeah, really just the building that warm mutual connection while we're in the hospital setting, building that genuine, authentic communication, building on those interests, building on those wellness strategies, and kind of learning from each other in the process. And then post-discharge is that 12 weeks where we meet up, do activities that we enjoy together, and once again explore those wellness strategies and supports, bridging to resources in the community, including services that we do here at Mental Health Recovery Partners. Yeah, so just exploring all the different approaches, highlighting strengths is definitely important, and building those approaches and supporting the self-determination of our peers.
I'll take it to the next slide. And
yeah, so the implementation of that was we started at our local psychiatric ward in Royal Jubilee Hospital. That was around September, October of 2020. Initially, we were on the acute ward there. That was the east and west of the ward. That was 2 of us on the ward part-time, 2 afternoons per week. We've now just recently expanded to the new subacute ward at Royal Jubilee. We did have a beautiful open conversation with the peers to see exactly how they wanted this to evolve, as much input as possible, and really peer-centered approach to this, what people are looking for, what will best support them on this journey. And the feedback was to have a little bit more of evening and weekend availability. We all know that mental health is not a 9-to-5 job. We can need support at any moment in time. So being able to offer that is definitely very wonderful. The priority for peers on the ward to initiate those meetings were those who were nearing discharge and those who currently have little to no supports in place, so might not otherwise be connected with community resources or outpatient care as well. So really kind of bridging that gap post-discharge.
okay, so, and then difficulty there. So how does this model promote recovery in a recovery-centered approach? What I'm going to do is I'll talk to you about how this program nested itself as we're moving forward with our relationships with Island Health, and of course the patients coming through service. As Natalie mentioned, we're starting in the second ward, second floor, which is north and east wards. There's 36 beds there. And so having a chance to have a couple of peer supporters go in and create relationships and provide a few presentations with the core team, so that they would actually get to know who Natalie and who Dawn were and what the role of peer support was, because this was something very new to the acute setting. What we learned was, as we've of course been going through the opioid crisis, that there had been a great deal of great work done around peer support for people with substance use needs, and for mental health needs or psychiatric. We needed to advance and explore where there had been a fair amount of structure for how people would be interacting in the psychiatric unit. So we're very pleased to enter into this partnership and explore a relationship in a new way. Of course, going into an acute setting where people were struggling with varied levels of acuity, as we were implementing the project, there was some discussion about what inclusion and exclusion criteria should be around peer support. And of course, the leading one was, does the person want to have peer support? And one of the things that we found to be quite helpful is not everybody wants to have peer support, which is fine. But sometimes when they're having a chance to see healthy conversations happening within the ward with other inpatients, it's been really helpful to see that kindness and the compassion and the open chats have been a nice place for people, especially if they've been in the ward for some time. So there was a nice informality that was happening, and a great way to start building these connections, and of course increase confidence by the staffing team to be able to see the lightness that happened with these interactions. Sometimes people are in the acute setting and they may not be there of their own volition, and so they'd be involuntary. And that was something that we noticed was an interesting part for folks who are quite isolated, to have a chance to connect with someone with lived experience that may or may not have also shared a similar experience. So the conversations didn't revolve around illness per se. It was more around connection, and that's one of the beauties of peer support. And of course, that's one of the big parts of the peer support training that we're so excitedly taking part in right now. So when we talk about the recovery guidelines, being sure to come from that the person-centered approach, hearing the person and not focusing on the illness, and having a chance to nurture hope within a person. We also follow the PSR guidelines for the PSR Canada, and people can find those on the website that's on the screen. And also on the screen, I've also included the link from their website that has some nice cards that you can actually explore for yourselves about, are these principles actually being activated in your workplace or in the place where you might be receiving some help or support. So in terms of promoting recovery in a person-centered approach, the practical part of that has been having a chance to have the focus being on the person versus the diagnosis or the illness, and transcending that to be able to talk about what kinds of things can be helpful for a person. And some of the things that I know Natalie will be talking about, the importance of community connections. We run a group once a week. Right now it's on Zoom. And also WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, helping a person rediscover themselves and to find a sense of empowerment and strength in meeting with other people who are on a similar journey. With the promoting the recovery in a person-centered approach, as I mentioned, the recovery-oriented guidelines, I know Island Health had actually worked very hard to develop the recovery-oriented guidelines, which were to assist with a kind of a culture shift and an adoption of the recovery declaration, which was signed and championed by senior leadership. So we're really thrilled to be working on a partnership with them to help promote recovery. And also, we've been noticing some excellent changes outside of the project in terms of even some of our folks helping with interviews of managers and senior managers. So that's been a really great showing of how people can be influencing the ecosystem around them. We can take onto the next slide. Examples of connections and lessons learned that help promote recovery is for Natalie.
Some lessons learned and new connections that we have found throughout this project to help promote recovery. So lots of collaborating with the teams to overcome barriers. Things such as access and counselling and supports, different resources that might be in the community. things such as life skills. When people do leave the acute setting and go on to lead fulfilling lives, there are some facets of care that they need to develop and need help with. Financial support, so things like setting people up with the right opportunities for paperwork and that kind of process for things like PWD and things like that. We've also found a big need for flexibility in the role. Something recently that has been approved is that we can offer day passes and take peers out of the hospital to do some kind of fun activities and give people things to look forward to as well. We've had to adapt and visit other areas of the hospital when needed, if peers have moved around wards. Bridging access to those resources. So for some of our peers, we've been participating in housing searches, resume building, employment applications, and providing those social connections. So setting up with community organizations that can promote social events and social connections and just building that hope and many different parts of it. We have found that self-care for everybody involved is crucial. This is a role of vulnerability, emotional investment. We're providing open and supportive conversation. But for everybody involved, we need to take those steps to look after ourselves as peers and peer supporters. Hazel touched on WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan from Mary Ellen Copeland and the Copeland Centre. I have found it a priceless resource in my recovery, and it's something that peers are very excited about leaving the acute setting. It's something that can set them up for success. It is a wellness process that anyone can use to get well, stay well, and shape the life exactly how they want it. So some key concepts of that are hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. Some things that go into that are building our wellness toolboxes, looking at our stressors, looking at how we're doing when we're well compared to how we're doing when things are breaking down, and really setting those plans up to support all of those good and bad days. Yeah, so that is some examples of the new connections and lessons we've learned so far. I think Hazel is just going to pop onto the next slide there. Of course, it's been a challenging time for everyone with COVID. And we have had to adjust a little bit and came across some other barriers. Mostly I've noticed that there has been an extended time on the ward for peers because of COVID. They've had to stay there that little bit longer. Or with the current housing crisis, some peers have had to stay on there a little bit longer until housing has been secured. With COVID, there has been less visitors to the hospital setting and less day passes, opportunities to leave the ward. So peer support has really been a crucial resource during this time, forming those connections, giving people a warm, welcoming ear. Of course, the clinicians are there, the nursing staff are there, but just having someone else to talk to and someone else to talk to that gets it and has kind of walked a similar path. In our community meetings, there was a shutdown of hospitality and leisure services for a while, which meant moving those community meetings online, so doing Zoom chats, which limited accessibility for some. So we had to readjust our sails a little bit. And as Hazel mentioned, we did create a Transitional Discharge Model Zoom drop-in meeting, which happens on Thursday nights. And that is for peers who have spent time on the ward. And what we're finding in the feedback of that is the kind of camaraderie and community that comes from that shared experience of being on the ward. It's definitely a strong relation when you have a shared illness or shared experience, but being on the ward definitely has its own journey, and being able to connect with someone who's been there as well, not necessarily people they met on the ward, but outside, and continuing those relationships and how to best support each other. So yeah, that's some things we've had to adjust to because of COVID. I'm just going to ask Hazel to bring up the next slide here. I've got to say, since starting this project, I have felt so grateful and blessed. The feedback we've had so far, Hazel's just going to pull up a quote slide here. The feedback we've had so far from peers and clinicians have been wonderful. Hazel, if you can pull up the quote slide for me, please. Yeah, I'm going to not talk through these. I'm going to let you read them there, but this is the power this project is having. This is the impact. It's changing lives. It's supporting people, as Hazel mentioned, that in that very critical time when you're discharged from the ward. And it is an adjustment. It is quite hard. You know, I've never felt so normal and hopeful on this journey since talking to you, that we can provide hope and a sense of normality and something that is absolutely life-changing and can be a big struggle, to offer that space, to offer that connection, and you know, just help people feel less alone. It's definitely something that supported me in my journey, and I grow and learn from every single peer I meet with. On the next slide here, we'll show you some quotes from the clinicians. As Hazel said, it is a brand new approach in the hospital setting. So we've had some good chats with the nursing staff and the doctors. You know, thank you so much for all you do for my patients. We've needed something like this for a long time. And that has been a common thread, is the clinician staff saying, this is a long time coming. We've been waiting for this approach in recovery for a long time. I'm going to share a beautiful story with you. I met a peer a few months ago on the ward. The peer shared with me that he had been living on the streets for 20 plus years. His time in the hospital was the longest he had had a roof over his head since leaving home at 17. Because of COVID that I spoke about before, there was a little bit longer period on the ward for him until housing was secured. He was initially apprehensive of the support. He felt very unworthy and admittedly only conversed with me out of politeness. After meeting for 2 months in that acute setting, he said to me one day, I'm going to need your support when I discharge from here. This is going to be a whole new life for me, and I don't know how to navigate it. And fast forward 3 months, the peer has taken up leisure activities, such as yoga and hiking. He has returned to some previous interests, such as reading books and writing. He moved out of the initial supported housing that he was living with, and he is now sharing an apartment with a room in a mental health apartment complex. In his words, he joined the grid. He's done things like got a phone number, got a bank account, got an ID card. He recently secured his first job within hospitality. We discussed the ideas of securing employment, he told me, you know, what am I going to put on my resume that I've been dumpster diving for 20 years? And we discussed the strengths out of that, you know, like you're thrifty, you're all the things that come from how he's shaped his life. Just such an inspiring gentleman. And he shared with me just last week, and I think this speaks to the self-advocacy and awareness he has found within this journey, is that he wants to find a more fulfilling role. Hospitality is not for him, and he wants to explore his interests, and he's planning to go back to school to study mathematics. And yeah, I had to share that story because it shows the power of this connection. And the alternative was him leaving the ward and maybe meeting with the clinician every week, and not exploring those social interests or other areas of his life. So yeah, this work is so important to me, and so blessed to be part of it. And I'm just going to hand this back over to Hazel now, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I've really had a great pleasure in working with Natalie and with Dawn, and of course our peer team that works in the community. And as we're really witnessing a shift from the traditional biomedical approach to the recovery-oriented approach, it takes all of us to come together and see day to day and structurally how we can be of better help and service. And some of the things that have really been instrumental is looking at our language, looking at are we using hopeful language? Are we being strengths-based and seeing people as a pool of assets and resourceful beings with strengths and wisdom inside themselves? And one of the beauties, I think, of having an integrated service where we have people with lived experience that can model some of the inspiration of moving through adversity and exploring a lifestyle of recovery. It's been just a beautiful and powerful, meaningful approach. And when I've spoken with an interesting segment is I've spoken with both Dawn and Natalie about their experience as people have experienced the system in different ways, and with our peer supporters, and having a chance to hear that they wish something like this would have been available for them. And we hear that often with other interventions, whether it's early psychosis intervention, peer support, the move to recovery-oriented approaches. I think that there's so much hope that we can have when we come together and see what is working. And when I learned about this transitional development model, I really believed in the evidence, the research that Cheryl Forchuk and her team had done. I'd had fantastic conversations with like Dr. Forchuk, and also Barbara Frampton had been really wonderful. I think she's on this call, from a lived experience leadership perspective, and knowing that it takes many people to make this a reality, a possibility. I think is truly a testament to the movement that we're seeing ourselves in right now. I did want to speak to I understand that there might be other places that want to how did it start? And for us, as I'd mentioned, a mother had come to me and shared about the model, and now we all know a little bit more about the model today, and can identify the research that's in the reference section of this paper, and of course through your own research. But also, as we're moving forward, it is still early days of this project. So like having those early days of who's going to be working on this. Is it going to be a fully embedded internal Island Health with Island Health peers process? Is it going to be contracted services, which is the model that we landed on here? One of the pros of that, I think, has been that we've been able to assist folks in longer journeys with peer support service and other services in the community. It's a lot of navigation about different services, and people can find what fits them best at whatever point of their journey that they're on. But the other thing I think that's really important and incredibly inspiring is to see that when someone is working to help themselves and they reach out their hand, that there's their hand beside them that will walk alongside them in their journey. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about how we can actually help each other through these challenging times, and sharing about what models are actually working. And this is one that has shown to work. It's shown to have not only a quality of life impact, but also a cost savings impact for the hospitals. So it's a win all the way around, and we're really pleased that Island Health has gotten behind this, and also have shown a real commitment to bringing this into their, not only the acute ward where it was starting as a pilot, but what we've been noticing is a linkage to the new subunit that's started, and also some discussions into other areas of care such as tertiary, and exploring other areas such as as PES, or even in our community-based services and cares. So I think that we're seeing some really extraordinary things happen at this time. And our next move is to really identify what are the longer term impacts of this intervention. Is it showing the same results that they would be showing in Ontario? And we're really excited that it is early days, and we're certainly learning a lot, and being able to see some smaller systemic issues that come up, and having a conversation with management, able to shift some things so that it works, and it's a true testament to that hard work. It's also a testament to the people that have struggled and have found difficulty. So I'm hopeful that we can move through this together. The the implications for practice of this model from one of Cheryl Forchuk's papers is that the model supports nursing practice based on interpersonal relationships and strategies, and nurses need to be aware of peer support resources to facilitate this part of the model. This model isn't just about peer support, it's about our relations and also the move to embracing the recovery-oriented practice. And so being able to see, are we doing that? The clinicians, the nurses, the social workers, the managers that we've spoken with for our check-in meetings have all been very positive about this service. And I think as we keep moving forward and collecting the data that shows qualitatively as well as quantitatively how much of an impact it can have, we've seen it happen in the 9 hospitals in Ontario. And as I said, the latest news release from London, Ontario, is every reason to be hopeful. What I'd like to close with is to talk about some new developments just that's happening here, and also have a time for questions. People might have any type of question, and so we'd really like to share some time for that. So just in terms of the new developments at Mental Health Recovery Partners, we've just commenced some more peer support training with the good work that's happened with the BC curriculum development. Thanks to a great team of folks that included lived experience to help advise the curriculum and the curriculum writers themselves, like specifically Jen Cusick. We're just in the midst of some training on the island, and it's been so helpful and enlightening doing it cross sectors. So there's peer supporters from the ACT team, there's peer supporters from our service, and also even from a couple of different models and around the island. So I think the movement is happening very very successfully, and really pleased to see that. The BC curriculum is going to be launched very soon, and I think that was spoken about at the last seminar that we had. Family peer support we're developing, and of course we're always recovery-oriented work champions, and we're here to help. We are actively recruiting 2 to 4 people with lived experience who would be wanting to work in the transitional discharge model. So I'll put that little plug there. It's written on our website at www.mhrp.ca. And really just let's continue to work together to build our community connections and more resources in the community, as I started out with a mention of the mental health and physical health parity paper, and focusing on a continuum of support that supports the person where they're at in their journey, in their ups and downs of their journey, and recognize that we all have struggles and adversity, and we could do more when we come together. So with that, I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time for questions, and we could have some discussion. I know some places are interested in implementing in their area, and if there's anything we could do to help, this is truly a good news story. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks to Natalie for your time and patience, and of course the host for having us.
Thank you both for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I learned so much for you and your team, Hazel. I just want to make a big shout out to Victoria and to like your mental health team in general. You guys are, I think, as you say, to use your own words, on the cutting edge of many, many things. Had the great joy of being part of a recent webinar with Heather to learn about some of these things. And so my history is an old occupational therapist in a mental health team about 30 years ago. And so I remember we began conversations around peer involvement back then, and to consider that we would have peer support within a hospital setting was a little unwelcome, shall we say, at that point. So just really kudos to you and your team for the vision, for the foresight to be able to nest this within the existing literature, to make great connections with people I think we all respect, such as Carol, in terms of the work she does and how she writes, and her sense of, you know, like how she includes people with lived experience in a real and trusted way. And so, and for bringing this information to us today. I know that you worked hard, you and your team and Natalie, to bring this work to us today. I know you worked hard and late to make this happen. So thank you very, very much. Absolutely. So yeah, informative. Ash adds, just thank you, Hazel and Nat, for the most empowering and informative week. So thank you very, very much. We did have a couple of questions, and maybe we will start there. But one began with, I'll just take them as they came in. So we got questions in both formats after, anyways, doesn't matter. So first person was about language and just asking, just when you use the peer, was it somebody receiving services or delivering services? And then Jen helped us understand that in your program, that you've chosen to use the word peer instead of client. So I presume it's peer receiving services or delivering services, but I guess just this person was just asking for clarification. So I guess that sounds like that was an important passage for you to make that decision. That's important. Quinn asks, do a lot of clients I'm working with don't identify as having mental health problems, and ask,
yes, it's sometimes hospital or outside.
How do you promote recovery with folks who don't self-identify as having mental illness?
So recovery, sometimes the word sits with people and sometimes it doesn't. That's okay. We really look at self-determination as being a guiding principle in our work. And when over the years, I think, kind of as a principle of working, we see the person first, and the different other identifiers that a person might have in their life, not unlike Pat Deegan's flower metaphor, if you're familiar with that. In the old school, it would be that there would be the illness kind of in the middle of the flower, and then their name and their various roles like auntie or churchgoer or book club attendee or student would be in the others. And we really work to put the person's name first and foremost in the center of that world, or Pat Deegan's flower, for those of you who are familiar with that. So if people don't like the word recovery or it doesn't sit with them, that's great. If they don't believe they have a mental illness, and they've perhaps been given a diagnosis or working against a diagnosis or not happy with it, you know, at the end of the day, we're all people, and so being able to connect with thoughts and feelings has been vitally important. I know over the years, whether it's been on an ACT team or in our service here, connecting with a person, people have a sense to know if they're happy or content or anxious or satisfied, feeling that their life has meaning. And so transcending diagnosis in some ways to explore that, and helping identify like what kind of psychosocial aspects are they struggling with. So perhaps a person might not identify that maybe they have schizophrenia, and so rather than this, and in a peer support context, we're not there to battle with a person about a diagnosis. They're really exploring connection. And I know that that's a big part of the peer support training, is around how to assist with connections when we look at some of the risks for people around safety and well-being. Feeling connected, feeling that they have a person they trust and can talk to is one of the biggest ways that we can provide a support and an increased safety in a person's life, health, and well-being, and for those around them. And I think that we struggle sometimes in terms of thinking that a person, you have to battle with them specifically before we can even talk about recovery. Recovery is more of a lifestyle, depending on which definition of recovery that you use or word of choice that they might have in terms of living life with meaning, purpose. It becomes I always share my favorite book, Man's Search for Meaning, and so it becomes like a philosophical approach to how a person is experiencing their life in their context and their connectedness with others.
So it sounds like you're really focusing on that notion of that person's experience as opposed to the diagnostic model or the illness label, pardon me.
Yeah.
It's about a shared human experience as opposed to saying,
Yeah.
oh, or you have a diagnosis, let's chat. But
yeah, in the peer supporter role, I think it's really about the connection, so a person is not feeling alone, and that a person is feeling supported and not alone in a journey which is often very stigmatizing for a number of reasons.
Yeah, finding the strengths and goals of that person out with any kind of label or diagnosis is the core of it all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that answers that person's question.
Yeah.
Another person had a question: how is peer work being implemented in Victoria currently, given COVID?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends on where it is. So, like for MHRP, for example, when March 15th came, the Ides of March, and I know within 4 days we worked really hard. We got everything put online and started a phone call service for folks that struggled with technology or like computer technology. Phone is still a technology, and did our best to assist folks as that. For the hospital, there have been different procedures that I know Natalie had talked about in the hospital. So in the hospital, we're still seeing folks in person with all the COVID protocols in place, and we'll be looking at MHRP to slowly unveil that. There's a lot of anxiety, and we want to do our best by everyone to help them connect. So it depends on the service and society and organization.
Anything to add, Natalie?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very exciting time when restrictions start changing and we can start going back to doing more of those community activities together and building, strengthening those bonds. You know I have peers that would love for us to go to yoga or go to the movies and I can't wait for that to return. So yeah, we've made the best of it and we've adjusted our sails as we went, but it'll definitely be nice to have some more flexibility.
Yeah.
I think that probably just feeds into John's point. I would really like to see this model, he says, implemented in Nanaimo. Why is the PSW role not standardized in Island Health, he asks. Victoria seems to far superior to Nanaimo in terms of the connections and peer support workers have with patients or clients.
I'd like to speak about that just a little bit. I know it was about 3 years ago that we've been working with Island Health with a number of folks across the island, including some folks from Nanaimo, and explored and created a guide that was supported by the plans and support of the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and that was to really look at different areas where things such as peer support could be supported. And there's a lot to it, like looking at job descriptions, looking at roles, looking at roles and role clarity across different services. Like it's also like what's happening in the community. So MHRP is a community organization that does fundraising and has several contracts to help support our work. So there's grassroots energy as well as Island Health that work together with other supporters and funders such as the Victoria Foundation, United Way of Southern Vancouver Island. It takes a village to make this happen, and so I know that there was a couple of folks from Nanaimo that were taking some of this brand new training. So it's part of a movement, and I think let's all tap into the same song sheet and see how we can be kind and help this movement grow, both inside Island Health and in the community. The community allows people to explore roles and also kind of cut their teeth on a few ways of doing peer sports, see if they like it, and also what would they like working in the hospital versus on an ACT team or kind of more in the community, and there's family peer support as well. So I'd encourage people to get in touch with us and like let's keep building this movement. I'm very, very hopeful. And part of it is not just around peer support, but also the larger recovery-oriented practice shift culture.
I think that answer just speaks to many other comments and questions around, is there peer support? Where do we get training? And definitely in our last presentation with dear Jen, many of those thoughts arose. And I think just you've honored that there's a variety across, I guess, the country in terms of offerings. You've also helped us understand that a lot of your work involves fundraising or raising money with a number of different partners. And I just, my hat goes off to you, because I think that's work, and that is an executive of a organization, perhaps that's where a lot of your energies go. But unless we build those partners, it's very hard. And sometimes with health authorities, it's, you know, it's a different funding model and it's more tricky sometimes, or all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's nice. It's great that it happens inside the Island Health and the different health authorities. It's great to have community-based options, because not everybody is necessarily at that acute or crisis stage. And if, like with the WRAP concept of helping people earlier on and being part of a
Sorry, I think we lost you a little bit there.
Community and getting training and giving back, help the movement advance.
Welcome back. We lost you there for a wee moment, but thank you. You know
what? Sorry.
Adrienne just adds that she's also given us a number here. She have offered a number of resources along the journey this morning in the chat, so thank you for that. And adds there are no peer supports in Cowichan either, as I witnessed for myself. I have developed my own recovery and wellness based on my reading and linking with other programs outside the clinical care model, despite no supports set up by ACCS team. Now more than 3 months. So yeah, it just speaks, I guess, to the paucity of the work that we have to do, the work ahead, perhaps. Yeah. Great question here from Quinn, who says a lot of folks with substance use when being discharged are in danger of overdosing when they return to the community. And indeed, Adrienne offered a number of different statistics. Hopefully you can see that in the previous chat there with a reference just to, I guess, help us understand the importance of this work. So talking about overdosing when returning to the community, because they haven't had used in a long time. Perhaps there's a role for peer support workers connecting folks with harm reduction supports in the community as being a question.
Yeah, and absolutely. I've been talking more about mental health, psychiatric, and people aren't in a neat, tidy bubble. So there is a continuum, but we do have other partners in Victoria who are doing incredible work, such as Umbrella, AVI, Solid, and they are utilizing peer support workers, people that have had lived experience and moving forward in their journeys in different ways. So it's finding what works for the person, and really there's a lot of great work that's happening, and we can only come more together and find out what our communities are doing and then strengthen and build that. Thanks, Quinn.
So Eva asks, can the resource links from this chat be emailed to attendees? So what Dear Manny does, see, I usually say it's the royal we, but Dear Manny just does her magic and then puts this presentation up on the website. Usually it's up by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And on that, you can just like flip to the final part and you can just see all the resources. And I think all of them we have just put in the chat already. So that's our best way. We don't have, honestly, a way with our current platform to email all of those things out to you, but they're in the chat, so you can just cut and paste. And if you don't like that, then you can just come back into this recording and you can find them there. Adrian adds, thanks, Hazel. Yes, truly want to connect, offer my service as a volunteer with much training. My own wellness is what I have embraced, although largely without local support. Glad to learn about what you're doing. Have you looked at Margaret Wheatley's work? I do love that, Margaret Wheatley. Just in terms of, you know, I'm going to just share with this, Hazel, I hope you don't mind, but share with our community here. You and I both attended, we did our masters at Royal Roads University, and that Margaret Wheatley's work was definitely a key discovery for me. It just, you know, I always just think of this idea of her work as kinder, gentler systems. And
Yes.
many of the systems we all work in, they just beat us up a little bit. And yeah, I think that we hope that during the fireside chat and our next time when we're together, that we will speak a little bit about compassion. Yeah, I'm just going to share with you a little bit, and probably I'm just taking a little bit of a risk here, but based on Jen's presentation last time about peer involvement, and I'm just going to share what, because I think there's a lot of chat on this space right now, is we need to move forward, we need to do more, we need to do more. So just to let you know that our little PSR advanced practice team have put together a proposal for some funding so that we could work with the peer support training to be able to offer a credentialing way for people. So if they do the online training, we're hoping to be able to develop some sort of a system where we can get people to go through an evaluation and then provide a credential through Douglas College in advanced practice. So that's what we have up on our sleeve. So thanks, Susan, for that feedback. So we're hoping that that's successful. So it's through the Ministry of Advanced Education, Skills and Training. I always get that title wrong, but we're hoping to, hopefully that will be helpful for the community. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for that, yay. But anyway, I think we're all just trying to do our little bit. You know, some of us want to volunteer, some of us are here today to learn, and that's a great, 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 great start. And then wherever we are coming from in our world, that we're trying to build on those things. And we have people like dear Natalie today, who's just a wonderful role model, I think, for that role of just, you know, the ability to connect with people and to share the journey and, you know, help people build their own connections in the community. Thank you. I know that poor Jen, I'm aware that you're in the background, and I know that this is your life work. So maybe you want to pop on and just, you know, just come play with us. Yeah, I'm sure you have many things to add, many, many great things to add. I just want to provide that voice there, Jen, that you don't have to be quiet in the background because.
I'm not really.
sorry. Sorry. I should have checked with you in advance. I apologize.
I'm happy to hop in.
Great. Good. So just checking to see if we have any other open questions. Oops, I think I have one here. Linda asked, can you talk about contract with Peer Island Health? There are certainly issues about pay equity, workers' rights for people who have mental illness. That comes from Linda.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So there's so much happening in BC around pay standards, pay scales. There's a PEEP document, which I don't know if you have on hand that you could share in the chat. I could pull that up in a moment. So there is a lot of work about looking at what a pay scale could look like. They do have a pay scale in Island Health. I think what some of the early feedback is knowing what a person is applying for, because not all peer support working areas are some can be more. While they all should be a degree of mutuality, working in more acute or clinical or ACT team settings can have some extra stress and struggle. And so it's preparing not only peer supporters, but also the teams around to assist folks in the best way, most helpful way possible, as according to a lot of research that's out there. So there's definitely a lot of work that's happening there. One area of particular interest over the years, we've had a peer support program here since 2002, And so over the years, we've been looking at what we can do while also writing the grant proposals and fundraising and trying to bring income into our service to provide for folks. We can certainly all do better with that. But I know one area that's been kind of explored is around honorarium giving and payment. So that gets a little dicey when we're looking at when is something like an honorarium based situation versus for Canada Revenue Agency and the employment standards, when do they actually start looking like an employee? So we've certainly explored those roads. So I'm happy to get questions coming to me if you wanted to explore that. Also for people on in BC on PWD, so persons with disability, if they're doing providing peer support as a direct service for other people with lived experience, there's a clause that we've learned for people who are on social benefits for PWD, that earnings can be exempt. So there's been a lot of kind of systemic learnings about how to help people, especially because they're often moving from a period of time where maybe they're not earning money for during their recovery and looking to make those steps back into, or the steps into the workforce. We've certainly assisted people in terms of building that up in terms of stamina for how many hours a person can work, and also the pay. So there's a lot that's happening in BC right now, specifically in the last couple of months. I know that the BC training curriculum had spirited a lot of conversations. There's been a lot of work coming out of the BC CDC, I think.
Yes.
The PEEP doc and wage and so forth. So yeah, that's
Hazel, sorry, we lost those last couple of sentences. I apologize. It was just
so happy to be in touch. And then if there's any way to assist in moving this forward, one of my wish list items would be that MSP would pay for peer support and RAP. So it's something that I would love to see happen. Yes. And there are other ways of accessing types of services such as self-directed options of care, which isn't really done in the mental health area. So that's another area explored by Dr. Judith Cook. That would be really cool to see, because we know we want more peer support. We know we want programs like RAP. Is how do we do it and pay people for it as well?
Yeah, great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, we have another couple of minutes if anything is pressing. If not, we can bring our Jen. Any words of wisdom to leave us with?
Oh, gee.
Let's
love what people said, like just now about MSP paying for peer support and RAP. I just finished training with a group in Edmonton, and right before this webinar, we had a celebration, and there was, just comments again about lack of funding and lack of availability for positions, even though they have quite a few there compared to here. There's just such a need. And now with this training, we have the possibility of more people getting trained and, work ready. And it would be really great to have more jobs, more opportunity to do the work. So,
yeah. And doing the work and also having a chance to volunteer if they're not ready, because I know that there's a group of folks that just find it so anxiety provoking to even think about going to that area. So having training support and also coaching around resuming going back to work activity, that would be awesome. And education, of course, for folks.
I love how you capture that, Hazel. Just I think that sometimes I'm so focused on like trying to advocate for, positions that are kind of, sophisticated and I don't know even have the words, but I love that you're also capturing that entry level as well. That's
Yeah,
really,
it's
really
great to have a realm like
Yeah,
some of our peer support folks. They've gone on to different some with different careers, some with advanced careers in counseling and social work. I mean, meeting a person where they're at and seeing us grow and meet the dreams that we have.
yes.
It's
We have
beautiful.
We have a specific question here from Linda. On a contract, she says, with VHAB, my understanding is that there are no benefits, where if you're on staff with Island Health, that treated equally. Can you speak to that? Different contexts, I guess. Different.
So some contracts have benefits and some don't. Is that?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Okay. So in Island Health, they would tend to have benefits, and then depending on the organization where they're working, it would depend on benefits. Like if that organization has benefits, and so typically when like speaking as an agency, applying for benefits, it's sort of do you put do you pay all the money out in the hourly wage, or do you decrease the hourly wage and put in benefits? It becomes a dance. So I think as the sector gets more income for the work that's sorely needed, that we'll just see better packages for everyone. And the nonprofit sector tends to be a bit behind the health authorities. And then there's kind of like some pluses and minuses of working in either like nonprofit sector or health authority or government. And so it's like, what does a person want to do and what's their aspiration, and how do we have checkpoints for people to aspire to what and where they want to be?
And clarity, I guess, around what's available. But Linda, I'll just say, keep on that advocacy, because I think, together from different perspectives, we advance the work, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. It might be nice to see, like, could there be a new way of exploring bulk benefits for folks? I don't know, but the more that we kind of talk together, the more that we can explore like what's possible.
Adrian, that's very creative. I had never thought of that. That's so cool. I'm just popping in with Adrian here. She said, will there be conflict of interest if we seek to become employees of Island Health as recovery partners? So sounds like a...
Sorry, I don't quite...
So Adrian writes, will there be a conflict of interest if we seek to become employees of Island Health as recovery partners?
So I think anyone who wants to work for Island Health should definitely go for it, as with any employee in service. And like for us, like we're really pleased that Island Health has contracted with us to provide opportunities for folks to connect in meaningful ways. So I think like there's a big sandbox in which we all kind of are there, and it's being from a person-centered perspective. Are we providing the services that are accessible and helpful and ready and effective? And are we measuring those impacts? That would be for a future presentation, because we're just compiling those now.
Beginning your journey.
Yeah.
We have a couple of comments from Don, for example, who just tells us that in contracted services in Nanaimo, there are no benefits. And then I guess Christine just brings up the idea, unionized, non-unionized, and there's a big old puzzle, isn't there? And that's tough to understand sometimes. And I suspect, if you are a peer and you're trying to get into this work, it must feel like a bit of a maze. It's like, okay, what are the pros and cons? And there's not really a roadmap, right? It depends a little bit where you live and what's available, and
and people are welcome to kind of connect with us or Natalie or other folks that are making that journey, and we'll just try our best together, right? And there are many services around BC, both rural, urban, and a growing way of understanding how we can assist across cultures and worldviews to come together so that no one should be left behind.
Sounds like, yes. And I think this might be a great time to say thanks, MHRP, for the amazing work you've done over the years. That's really, I know Hazel has been, like, when many of us have seen her around for, you know, a wee while, shall we say, and just the continued advocacy and progress and contribution is, yeah, it's to be recognized and appreciated. You are a mover and a shaker, dear Hazel.
Takes a team.
It's so true.
Thanks.
You really carved out an important contribution to mental health service delivery, and not only the contribution, but I think the way in which we've done it, Hazel. I think you've been a role model for many of us to support the work. Yeah, I'm so delighted to have Natalie with us today. As PSR, you know, as advanced practice, we try to live our values and to have people with that voice to come to the table, and just really want to acknowledge your team for making that happen today. That's a valuable and necessary and essential voice in this journey. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, filled with something nice, self-care, and a voice of advancement.
And stay cool, lovely people. For people in Dauphin, Manitoba, it sounds like they're cooking hot, and here in BC and others in the rain, hope you have a good old brolly. Thank you for spending your time with us. We look forward to the next session. Please do pop into the psyrehab.ca advanced our website. Please have a look. We have 3 amazing upcoming presentations. Love to have you. And we'd love to, again, just hear your feedback. I think a little bit earlier, Manny, I don't know if you have 1 second to just pop in again the evaluation link. I'm making poor Mike and everybody work hard today, aren't I? It's very bad. But just if you can pop in that link, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, and thanks for that great feedback from that last session. It was most helpful. Yeah, thank you, Manny. You are a dear heart. Thank you for doing that. So if you just want to click on that link, it will take you 3 minutes, I think, to just go through that. Love to hear from you. Thanks again to our presenters. Much appreciated. Stay well.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, happy weekend.